Okay, this is Algebra 2, 2.7, number 18, using substitution. We're going to focus on steps 1 and 2 in this first video. There'll be 2, maybe 3 videos to this problem, but we're going to start out with the first step. We're going to, obviously step 1. Okay, step 1. We need to determine what z is going to be, right? We need to, with substitution, so we're going to substitute one of the variables in. So I'm going to use this equation here, and I'm going to pull it out, and I'm going to use it to determine an equation for z, right? So my initial equation is 2x minus y plus z equals -3. And I want to say z equals something. That's what we want. I want to find out what z equals. So because I want to find out what z equals, z is going to be my variable, which means that I have to get everything else away from z. So I have -3 on the right side of my equation. So I'm going to say minus 2x. And what I do to one side, I have to do to the other. Minus 2x. Right? These cancel. And then I'm going to say plus y, so that those will cancel out. Let's say plus y. Okay, and then these cancel. And so now I've written a new equation. And this new equation then is going to tell me it's going to be z equals -3 minus 2x plus y. Okay, so that's step 1. And now that I know what z is going to be, I'm going to be able to use that here in a little bit to plug back into an equation to determine some other variables. But that's the first thing I needed to do was get z. So I used this equation, right? We'll call this equation A. All right, but then I also have 3 equations, because this is 3 equations that I have to look at with 3 variables, right? 3 linear equations with 3 variables, just like I believe it was number 16 and 17. So I used equation A right here, okay, and I use that one to solve for z. So now I'm going to use equation B, okay, and this is going to be step 2. All right, I'm going to call this whole area here step 2. All right, let's see. Just trying to kind of organize this a little bit. Okay. So this is all going to be step 2. Okay, step 2. All right, so using equation B, I have -x plus 3y plus 2z equals 4. And I have said that z is -3 minus 2x plus y. So this is going to be z right here. So I want to rewrite this equation, plugging all those variables into it. So I have -x plus 3y plus 2. And for z, I've got to plug in the value, right? So the value of z is this whole thing, right? It's not just one number like we sometimes would think. It's that whole thing is the value of z. So -3 minus 2x plus y. This is all the value of z. Okay? So all of this is z. And then I still have to put equals 4. Okay. So now what I want to do is I want to combine like terms. So I have, oops, let me back up. I got to do one more step first. I almost made a mistake. I need to continue this equation. I need to write it one more time. I need to say negative x plus 3y. And now what I need to do is I need to factor it, right? I need to say negative 2 times negative 3 gives me a minus 6. And then 2 times negative 2x gives me a minus 4x. And then again, because I'm factoring, I can do all terms. Taking 2 times y is plus 2y. And all of this is going to be equal to 4. And so I had to factor all of this out, which is where this portion here comes from 6 to 4, negative 4x, and the 2y. So all that comes from there. Okay, now I want to combine like terms after I've done that factoring. So I have an x right here. And remember, I always want to include my sign that's in front of my number. So in this case, I have the minus sign, or what it will be a negative, however you want to look at it. And then I want to combine my next terms, right, or my y's. And then my last terms that are going to be my negative 6 right here and my 4 on this side of the equation. So I need to get 6 over here to combine like terms, right? So I'm going to add 6 because that will remove it from over here. And then what I do to one side, I do to the other, and I'm going to put it over here. And so now all I want to do is I just want to add all these terms together. So negative x minus 4x gives me negative 5x. Okay, and then my 3y plus my 2y gives me 5y. Okay, and this is going to be equal to, when I look at my last terms, my 4 and my 6 gives me 10. So I can look at this equation now. I have negative 5x plus 5y equals 10. And I can look at this and I can see that I can take a 5 out of all of them. So I can divide all these terms by 5. And as long as I can divide them all, then I'm good. So these cancel, and these cancel. And then 5 goes into 5 once and into 10 twice. And so it leaves me with my final equation then, x plus y equals 2. So I need to figure one of these terms out. So what I'm going to do then is now I'm going to take, and this is where it can get a little confusing, but I don't want to have x plus y equals 2. I want to have another variable equal to something. Just like I have z up here equal to some value, I need to make one of these terms equal to some value also. So I'm going to make y equal to something. And so to do that, I just need to say minus x, because then I can get rid of x here. And then what I do to one side, I do to the other. And again, I'm doing this because I want y to be equal to something. So in my final part for this equation, I'm going to say y equals 2 minus x. And again, the reason I did that was because I wanted to say that y had some kind of value. I have to give a value to y. And so my value for y is 2 minus x, whatever x tends to be, ends up being in the end. Just like z is something over here. So now the only equation I have left to deal with is equation. I've done something with equation A in step 1, and then in step 2 I did some with equation B, and I'm going to do something with equation C also, and I'm going to include this. This is all going to be step 2. So now I'm going to do something with equation C. And equation C is x minus 2y minus 2z equaling negative 1. And so again, I have a value for z, right? So this whole thing becomes my value for z. So I can rewrite it. X minus 2y minus 2. And again, I'm going to plug this. This is my value for z, this whole thing. So where z is after the 2, I'm going to plug in this whole value. All these terms. Negative 3 minus 2x plus y. Okay, and all that in parentheses is what the value of z is, equals negative 1. Okay, so from here, I'm going to take and say x I got to do it one more time. X minus, and I have to do it one more time because I got a factor now, right? Minus, so negative 2 times a negative 3. That's going to take this and turn it into a positive, right? A positive 6. And then negative 2 times negative 2x makes, because the negative times a negative is a positive. So then this is 4x. It's the same reason this was plus, because the negative times the negative here was a positive, so I made that plus, and then the 2 times the 3 was the 6. I'm doing that again. The negative times the negative here is a positive, and then the 2 times the 2 is a 4, and then my variable with it is x. Then I say negative 2, the negative over here times the positive, it's going to make this a negative, and then the 2 times the y is going to give me 2y, and then all of that is going to be equal to negative 1. So again, I had to factor all of this out with the 2, which was the 6, the 4x, and the 2y. Okay, now again, I want to combine like terms. So I'm going to take my x's. I got to find all my x's, right? Like a little treasure hunt. And like I always said, they'll always take the sign in front of it. I didn't do that here. Okay. Always include the plus or minus or the negative and positive that's in front of the coefficient, the 4 being my coefficient. And then my next, I'm going to look for all my y's, all right, which are right here. Again, include the signs that are in front of the coefficient. And then my final one, like term, is right here. The plus 6 and the minus 1. So I got to get them all together. So I'm going to subtract 6 from this side. What I do to one side, I do to the other. Okay. And now I'm ready to kind of put them all together. And so I have x plus 4x gives me 5x. Then I have my negative 2y and my negative 2y. Okay, gives me a negative 4y, and it's again I'm adding and subtracting here, and that's why my signs aren't changing. Okay, so negative 2 take away 2 more gives me the negative 4, and then that's going to end up being equal to a negative 1 minus a 6. Okay, negative 1 minus 6 is going to give me a negative 7. So then my third value is 5x minus 4y equals negative 7. Okay? Negative 7. Yeah, let me kind of clean that up a little bit. Sorry for the delay. Okay, makes that negative 7. All right, so keep all these in mind because we're going to use them all. So I need to use them all. So this goes with equation A, okay, right here. This goes with equation B. And this goes with equation C. And I'm going to carry that on into the next one, but take a look at this the first 2 steps and make sure you understand those really well before we move on to the next step. And the second video will have the next steps that need to be finished out for this problem.